for me is part of me, a big part of me thinks that they're already here and already have been here for a long time, probably longer than us.
So Rob, I've had a lot of stuff happen to me since I joined Instagram. I moved to Hong Kong. I've changed jobs. I have started a podcast. I have gone to best friends' weddings. I've gone on holiday. I have done a lot of stuff. I've got engaged. Yet people want to hear you talk about ghosts and aliens more than all of those things almost combined.
Because all those things that you've done are part of the normal human experience. You should be visiting other places. You should be going to people's weddings. You should be upgrading your business and your body and all this stuff. You should be getting engaged and upgrading your relationship. It's just normal, you know. But you talk about ghosts and aliens, it's not normal. People want to, maybe the people who want to dig in aren't normal. I'm certainly not.
We say this about the normal experience, right? But you may be a little bit of an exception to the rule, right? But most people into ghosts and aliens are probably living at home with their mum and dad, playing video games, and then reading alien books, and that's it.
Yeah, true.
You've probably not had a relationship with anything other than a tissue in the entirety of their lives.
That was me 20 years ago, for sure. 100%.
I love the fact that I've just alienated all the people that are probably going to listen to the show within the first 5 minutes.
Upgrade your life. Come on, people. What's the matter with you? There's ways you can still experience the UFO community without being, you know, a basement troll.
So with this, have you always been a believer in things beyond our sort of like scope of awareness, or is there a moment in life that made you start thinking about this?
So obviously as a kid, I loved all the alien movies. I loved the classics, the Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Flight of the Navigator, which is an alien movie, all these different things. And then X-Files existed. And my God, I dived deep into that goddamn show. But there was a moment not so long after X-Files, because one of the X-Files episodes, they claim that everything's just a cover-up and it's all military weaponry and all this. And that episode was so compelling and explained things in such a way that I was like, I think it is all fake. Maybe it is just all. And then I had a couple of experiences of myself. And that's what made me think, okay, X-Files is wrong. X-Files is wrong here. And then that was it. It's never been, until recently, it's never been a major part of my experience, because these were tiny little split-second things almost, or things that lasted under a minute. They're not major experiences of my life, but they've certainly made me question reality, the Earth, the planet that we're living on, the universe that we're living in. It's made me question so much stuff about it and our understanding of what we think reality is, which is certainly not, you know, a clear-cut answer, depending on who you ask. And you go into certain circles of the UFO or UAP community, as we're calling it now, and there's some really cool people, man. There's some really educated, clued up, funny, compelling people. And there's also the absolute nutters that will just believe every single flipping thing. And, you know, it doesn't take up much of my time. I can still balance business, body, brain, banging, whilst feeding my I wouldn't say addiction. It certainly wasn't addiction, because it's so easy to go down these rabbit holes and never come back out. So easy to. I know people from some of the conspiracy communities I hung out years ago that are still so deep down there, and they've done nothing with their life except wave the same fucking placard at protests and shit like that. I'm like,
I know. I know I took the piss at the start, but I tell you what, you kind of encourage interesting people in these circles, right? Because it's people that question the norm. And I think there takes a level of intelligence to question the norm, because so many people go through life just thinking what our reality is and what our perception is how it is. And I always think it's like everything, I always look at the world like everything I see is based on light coming into my eyes, being interpreted by my brain and coming out as what I view the world to be. So I see there thinking that you're looking at, you're wearing a pink shirt, and before that you were wearing another shirt that you showed me. And I saw those things and I think, okay, that's what it is. But you might not be. You might be an 8-year-old chick called Cecilia. I have absolutely no idea.
Who knows? Who absolutely knows? This could all be part of the simulation. How do we know you're not part of how do I know I'm not part of your simulation? As far as I know, sitting here, you're part of mine. If we want to go down simulation theory, how do we know? We don't know. But if this is what, and this is why, like, I talk about this stuff because I like talking about it, and I have mates that like talking about it, and it starts interesting conversations with other people. But I'm not expecting anyone to go to the level that I go to in terms of research or even thinking about it. Because cool, I'm sitting here right now. I could see the sky, big Independence Day style mothership could come through the sky right now and just hover there. And it's going to be big news, global news. But some people aren't going to care because they've still got to pay the bills, still got to take the bins out on a Monday morning, still got to put their kid to sleep, things like that. So in a way, it would completely change our understanding of reality, but our current reality still has to continue in a way as well. Like, okay, aliens can come down. I'm still going gym tomorrow morning. I'm still getting my workout. And I'm stopping that.
You got to prepare yourself for war. You know, just
exactly, man.
I've seen Mars attacks. You know, I mean, if you're not in shape, you're getting destroyed. Interesting, you brought up simulation, like simulation theory. And do you think all ghosts? Let's assume now, right now, that there are ghosts. Do you think all ghosts know they're ghosts? Like, have you seen the movie The Others?
Yeah, great film.
I thought it was a great film, and I thought it's fascinating a concept of how we view life after death, or even not. Like, could this be someone in a parallel universe that we are seeing as ghosts, and to them, we are ghosts to them? It's someone peeking through. Like, are all ghosts, do you think, ghosts in the traditional sense, or do you think there's maybe something else going on?
Again, this is such a deep rabbit hole you go down, couldn't it? Like, again, if we know law of thermodynamics, energy can only be transferred, it can't be created or destroyed. So when we go, where does that energy go? It can't be destroyed, so it doesn't end with us. Yeah, whatever this energy is, and you could look at it. Okay, is it a soul? Is it a form of consciousness? Is it absolutely nothing? Like, does all the energy that's in me right now that ceases to exist once I've died, does it actually? In which case, the law of thermodynamics is wrong. So it has to be transferred in some way, shape, or form, which, depending on how far deep down the rabbit hole you want to go, who knows? So I was reading some recent things that I thought were quite interesting, that some people think that the ghost is not what was there before. It's just another imprint of simulations or multiverses constantly crossing over each other. So I was chatting with my friend who is the guy that I manifested a ghost with whilst he was trying to manifest UFO.
We'll get on to that.
We went to the airbase. We went to an airbase, Rivenhall, which is like World War I, World War II, shut down after that. And there's so many reports of ghosts there. So many reports of people hearing like Glenn Miller music and stuff like that. People seeing pilots getting into the plane and they're like, oh, get out of the plane, there's no one now. And so we were talking, this is when we started talking about this theory that, okay, is it imprints from the past? Which means if we do have imprints from the past, could we also have imprints from the future? Which could be what? These UFOs, these UAPs, and other phenomenon that we witness could be. Like, I mean, who knows? I can't sit here and say it's this. I can't, because no one can. The guys way, way, way more intelligent than me can't sit here and go, this is it, because no one's figured it out yet. But we're getting little drips of info that could change absolutely everything.
What info is being dripped that you've heard about?
So at the moment, if you go deep into the UFO community, and you could call this bollocks, go deep into the UFO community now, America has released a Whistleblower Protection Act, which is pretty much revolutionary. So guys who have allegedly worked on craft or know stuff about these UFO sightings and things like that weren't able to come forward because you're giving away official secrets, in which case, Julian Assange, So they haven't been able to do so. But now, with these recent congressional hearings, Congress has realized that there's all these private contracted projects going on, studying these craft, which do exist, studying these craft, and they don't have oversight. They don't like not having oversight. So now they've created this act where whistleblowers can come forward and say, look, I worked here, I worked on this, this is what I know, this is what may be of use to you. And obviously they can't go public first because that's not quite what it's all about. And yes, that does encourage nutters to come out of nowhere, but you can check that, you can cross-reference stuff, you can check. Of course you can check. And with the information being decriminalized a little bit, it'll be much easier to check who's working on what base, who's doing what have you. because the info that's coming out now. If you look at Jeremy Corbell's stuff, he was on Rogan again recently, who's done 2 phenomenal documentaries about the subject. Has said there are more and more people coming to him now. Granted, he's got to take some of a pinch of salt. More and more coming to him now that have said we have these craft. We've been trying to reverse engineer it for decades. And you can't come out with that because people think you're either lying or you're a nutter, or it might be crossing some official secret thing where some private contracted group, oinks you into the back of a van and we never hear from you again. Who knows? Who knows? But with the protection of these people, that they're not instantly going to be thrown in jail and they're going to be listened to and things are going to be looked at, we now have a chance to go, okay, what is that? What do we actually have? Does America actually have craft? Which certainly sounds like it with the amount of people coming forward. And how long have we had them and what are we doing with them and what does it mean? Like, give us the information now. Whereas before you couldn't because technically classed as illegal. Treason? Did they have treason in America? Or is it
I don't know.
No. Is that just a British thing? I don't know.
They just have secret assassinations in America instead.
Exactly. They just do.
You just don't see them ever again.
Yeah, exactly.
But when it comes to sort of like, do you think there is always something to ghost viewings or alien viewings, or do you think this is potentially our brain playing tricks us because we want to believe there's something more out there? If we don't want to believe of the atheist view of there being nothing, so like, do you think is this more of it, or are you pretty convinced there's more than we know?
There's so much going on. So much going on in the brain. It can be the tiniest defect or chemical imbalance that could create all sorts of issues, right? You see that with people on the street talking to themselves, like what's actually going on in their head at that moment in time, because it seems pretty normal to them to be doing that, and it doesn't seem normal to us. So there's obviously stuff going on inside the head that can cause all sorts of hallucinations, all sorts of different pictures. You've then also got to look at the influence of drugs. You've also got to look at the influence of culture and the people that come forward with these things because other people are doing so and they want to be part of the circle. They want to be part of the community. There's a name for it that I can't remember, but it's exactly that. It's people hear X amount of people telling this story and they're like, oh, I want to tell it too, so I'm going to tell it. And they start believing their own lie if you tell it often enough,
And if you look at social media as well now, right? Like how many people will do this? We're in a world now, 50 years ago, if someone came forward, they're coming forward because they have information they think is interesting. Whereas now people are coming forward because they want to have an Instagram following.
100%. 100%. So you never know who to trust. But if you spend enough time in the circle, and you look and you research, then you start recognizing who you can actually trust. UFO community especially, there's so many charlatans that are just trying to make money. You go on Amazon Prime, type in UFO, you're going to get 100 documentaries, most of which are bollocks, most of which are scripted, most of which will feature doctored video footage. They don't care. They just want your money. They just want to make documentaries. So from that respect, you're then like, well, how can I trust any of these documentaries? But at the same time, it doesn't mean you can't trust none of them. There are some who genuinely want to get the information out there. Anyone's never seen the 2 I'd recommend is Jeremy Corbell's Bob Lazar one, which is phenomenal. But if you don't believe Bob Lazar, you're not going to believe that documentary. And the phenomenon is on Amazon Prime now. I can't remember the geezer's name. And it's one of the best documentaries on the subject I've seen for donkey's years.
Why
probably so? The best one, because the witness testimony that he's not grabbing some mad redneck from out in the woods with no one to back up their story. These are group sightings. This particular one in Zimbabwe years ago, maybe early 90s or late 80s, one of the two, where these kids in the school, like a large group of kids in this school, saw this craft or multiple craft and saw a being as well. And he revisits them. He's got it's not got access to tons of, but he's got military documents detailing a lot of these sightings going way, way, way back into the 40s, I believe, if not a little bit further. He's not sitting there trying to link aliens to the pyramids. He's not sitting there looking at abduction stories or anything like that. He's literally using, this is what the Pentagon has said is real. These are the military documents that have been released. These are some of the mass sightings that multiple people have reported the same story on. Let's have a little bit of a deeper look and interview him. But no point in the documentaries he's sitting there saying aliens are real. or even sitting there and saying these guys are 100% telling the truth. Of course, it's up to you. But it's a really, really well made one. I would recommend anyone slightly interested in the subject go have a look at that one, even if it's your first one, because it's a good one.
I think I might definitely go and have a look at that. It's interesting when you talk about what's going on in the brain, because if we look at things like psychedelics, and you see that some people have spoken about feelings of being lifted up or seeing extraterrestrial life, you know. Do you think there's actually a reason why there's a link between the unknown and these drugs? Or do you think it's just our subconscious showing in front of you? Like, if we gave me, who's maybe more of a skeptic, a magic mushroom, and you, who's maybe more of a believer, because I've never seen anything like this on those substances, are you more likely to see those things than I am, because it's in your brain, it's in your subconscious?
And it also comes down to individual experience. I've done mushroom and LSD countless amounts of times that has given me UFO slash, I don't want to say abduction experiences, because I wasn't abducted in them, but I've ended up on things whilst on the influence of psychedelics. But afterwards, I know enough about both of those scenarios to go, it's just a psychedelic experience. But then what is a psychedelic experience? Is it just confusion of the brain due to these chemicals that are in there causing certain visions, which are pretty goddamn weird? Or is it allowing me to access another state of consciousness where I am actually communicating with these people? I can't say for sure. I don't think anyone can say for sure. But I also know that not to put too much emphasis on running around going, I was abducted by a craft and they opened me up and they fixed me and they did this and they did it. I can't run around saying that, because I was on the influence of drugs at the time. Things I've seen when I'm not on the influence of drugs, okay, could be some sort of flashback. I don't really know the science on if acid flashbacks are actually an actual thing or if it was ever just a joke. I don't know. But obviously we know people can have flashbacks to horrific memories that can certainly influence what they're seeing and how they're acting at that moment in time. But again, it's that individual experience. Some people are going to see it as a major part of their life that they need to talk about. And some people would say, you've got other things you need to crack on. You still need to live. Still got to build a business and a relationship and pay taxes and all this stuff. So being a skeptic is fine, because it's just something you haven't seen yet, really. And you're putting too much faith in other people's experiences then. And that's the same with religion. It's saying it's fine to not believe religion. Some people will have had major life-changing experiences because of their faith, or life-changing experiences that led them to a faith. And some people haven't, and that's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine.
So going into the aliens themselves, because we've drifted onto this a little bit. What, after seeing the documentaries, doing your research, going into these forums, speaking to people, what is your conclusion? What do you think is out there? Now, we know you believe there is something, but what does this look like to you?
Well, the biggest thing is to differentiate between aliens and these UFOs / UAPs, because all we're seeing is craft.
Why are they UAPs now? What does that stand for?
So unidentified, unexplained or unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Why that over an identifying object?
There's multiple reasons why they changed it. One of which is to take the stigma away from I saw a UFO. Because people go, oh, he believes in aliens, but they're taking the stigma away.
I thought you were about to say then, like, the UFOs are getting offended, so we had to virtue signal.
Did you not see the protest?
Loads of green flags on Instagram.
Oh mate, it's gonna come. It's gonna come. When aliens do visit us, people are gonna change their Facebook filters to whatever fucking flag someone comes up with.
So they changed it for.
They changed it for to take some of the stigma away, and because it's the word of the use phenomenon. So sometimes it's visible sighting of a craft. Sometimes it's lights that appear. There's so many different classifications of these different sightings that they're seeing in terms of the size of the craft, the type of the craft. There's tic tacs, there's flying saucers. There's a large amount. This one fascinates me. It's a large amount of people reporting these squares that are inside of a cube, fucking flying around. What the fuck is that? How's this one? So they changed it because obviously it creates a bit more of a broader spectrum of things that are in the air, but it takes the alien side away from it, where we've had 40 odd years of UFOs just meaning aliens. But
would that be more ball lightning?
Say again?
That'd be like more ball lightning when you see these little squares flying around of light.
Who knows?
Because that's what a lot of people get confused with UFOs, right? It's ball lightning, which is a strange phenomenon in itself.
Yeah, true, and that's it. And there would have been X amount of videos posted online that is exactly that. That is ball lightning. But now we're seeing physical, almost metallic looking or whatever material it is, craft. And some of these, I want to say they called it translucent. It's a square inside of a translucent sphere. It's fine. Fuck knows, man. Who knows? Who knows? Until this stuff really
What's your interpretation?
I chop and change so much. I used to think that it was, manned craft. And I use the word manned very, very loosely there, not because of gender, but because of in terms of someone being in there. They could be. I used to think that that's what it was. Something's
what
in
pronouns
there.
do they have?
What pronouns did the aliens have? It's going to be weirder than anything humans can come up with.
Yeah.
But that's what humans are coming up with anyway. Then I kind of switched to, okay, maybe these aren't manned. Maybe they're more drones because, okay, they define the laws of physics, but does that mean what's inside can defy the laws of physics as well? If these things are flying at lightning speeds that are breaking the sound barrier, but without breaking the sound barrier, no visible propulsion, can these things move around like that and what's inside not get fucked up?
But I can't imagine. Our laws of physics.
Yeah,
this is something I always find very interesting. When they say that when they're looking at planets and they're trying to find life on other planets, they say that planet's not worth looking at because it definitely can't house intelligent life because it doesn't have the climate or the oxygen. Like, but we live on these climates, but it doesn't mean another being doesn't live in these climates. People go, no life on Earth because there's too much oxygen there. It would kill us. Yeah. But we obviously have this. So I think we need to throw these assumptions out of the window when we're looking for these things, surely, because we don't know.
Totally. And you've got to look at, so I'll get to where they're from in a second, but you've got to look at exactly that. We're seeing them react to our understanding of our laws of physics, which the most intelligent people who live throughout history have decided what these are. And I'm sure none of them are wrong, but there's also a chance we only get to a certain level. Not that long ago that the Wright brothers were, throwing cardboard planes into the fucking reservoir, trying to figure out how to fly. And in a short period of time, we've gone from those to flying machines, to passenger craft, to warcraft dropping off nukes, to look at the crazy things we've got flying around now, right? That we've created. Incredible, right? You also got look at cars as well. Me and my friend rented a Tesla a couple of weeks ago. And my God, it goes so fast out of nowhere and there's no controls because it's all on the computer. You go back 20 years, that was not quite imaginable. You go back another 20 years, that was definitely, no, of course we're not going to have that. That's a pipe dream in the future. You go back 100 years, I don't know, we had cars for 100 years. Whatever it is, you look at the models back then, this is state-of-the-art technology. This is absolutely incredible. You look at it now, you go, it's just the first cars. We've now figured out how to improve upon them, how to make them faster, how to make them more efficient. What's vehicles going to look like in another 100 years or another 1,000 years? We're on this massive timeline where everything's constantly evolving. And at the moment, we can only really look back at what we've done to see how far we've come. We can't possibly predict how far things will be in the future, which then brings into this. Well, these things are here now. No one can actually deny that. These things are here now. Where they're from, whose they are, we don't know. We can't answer that. But they're here right now and they're doing this stuff. They're flying around at these incredible speeds and they're transmedium, which means they're going into water and coming out again and going from here to there in a split second. It blows my brain trying to comprehend it all.
Do you think it's necessarily all out of this world though? Because we often talk about, and I'm going to ask you a question about this in a second, but we often talk about conspiracy theories about governments hiding these UFO stuff from us. And is it, or are they hiding technology from us? So these things we're seeing that we're going, oh, must be alien in nature, could just be because as you quite rightly said, how quickly our technology is. But that we don't see what is the top of technology in this planet. So this could be government stuff. It could have nothing to do with anything extraterrestrial whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. And it 100% could be, right? If you look at most technology that we are experiencing now as a consumer, has probably already been around in development and in private contracting, whatever, for probably 10 years, if not longer.
And if anyone doesn't believe us, so look back at Apple. Apple are a great example of this. Where we had camera phones for a decade, and then Apple released its first iPhone without a camera. So they can scale back up. You say they didn't have the technology to do what they did 5 phones later. Now, obviously, that's a silly comparison. But if they could do that, if that's what's coming in commercial technology, let alone what's coming in governments and whatever else.
Yeah, exactly. It's you'll also have to remind me of what the question was because my brain's gone blank.
It was. We started off on a tangent of what actually you think is out there. So you were then going to go on to where you think they're from and this sort of stuff.
But there was something in the middle there. Shit, never mind. It will come back. I'm sure it will come back. But sorry. So in terms of, is it just ours? Okay, it very well could be. But you've also got to look at how the 3, maybe 4 biggest governments on this planet operate. The American government has just admitted that Congress did not have oversight of this stuff. And presidents are not necessarily being briefed upon it. And that's not necessarily because they're trying to keep it secret from the president. The president's got so much else to worry about in terms of running the country. Do UFOs, UAPs, do aliens really come into that as a matter of priority? You could very much argue no, and that's fine. I could probably agree with you there, but still something to look at. If America had that technology and it knew how to control it and it could use it from a military perspective, why aren't we using it now on mass scale when these sightings have been around for decades? Russia, is it Russian? We know Putin loves does topless photo shoots on horses. That geezer loves himself. Do you really think that guy, wanting to be seen as the toughest guy on the planet, if he had those craft, would not be using them in full force now to show the world, look what I can do, look what I have? Why wouldn't he use it in Ukraine either? I don't get it. I don't quite buy into that the governments have it. If China had it, we'd all be speaking Chinese right now. Because if they can attach a payload and control and go faster than anyone else's war machines, we'd all be speaking Chinese right now.
It's a fair point, because when we look at things like nuclear weaponry, even the things we have no intention of using, like we maybe couldn't comprehend what some of these things are. But even if they would never, even if you say, well, there's no point them telling us about them because they are so dangerous or they're not going to be used, but it would be the ultimate flex. It would be the ultimate deterrent of war. Because as much as we all are scared and worried and hate the idea of what nuclear weapons are, and they are horrendous things, they have probably been the thing that stopped war.
Yeah, exactly. It's that, was it mutually assured destruction, isn't it? I've got these, and I know you've got these. If you press your button, I'm going to press my button, so you're fucked as well. And yes, likewise, if I press my button, you can press yours, of course, and then the whole thing's over. So if we do have these things, we do have this craft, and this is it again. We have these craft, and we've made them from start to finish. Then why aren't they being used, and why are they so secretive about it when we are so quick to fly over to whatever country and bomb the crap out of it? Why aren't we using these things when we've had it for so long if we've developed it? There's also an argument that we have found them, or we've been given them, and we're trying to reverse engineer them, and we've maybe just figured out how to fly them. Cool. But that means they came from somewhere or someone or something else. There is also the chance that what we're seeing is not manned by any human whatsoever. Like, we might have the craft and we're trying to reverse engineer it, but we haven't figured out how to fly it yet. It goes against what Bob Lazar said. But again, it all comes down to if you believe Bob Lazar or not. It might literally be things that maybe we have a handful of them and we're trying to reverse engineer them, but we can't figure out how to use them, but we're still seeing these things fly around. This not from any, like, there's almost 3 different scenarios there that we created them. It's unlikely because we'd be using them, that we've been given them or found them and we've reverse engineered them and just about figured out how to use them. But again, we'd be using them on, I'm sure we'd be scaring the hell out of other countries to try and, we'd be, like you say, we'd be flexing. Of course we'd be flexing.
Are you going with the assumption that the whatever is out there will be more advanced than us. Because I'm not wanting to say that we're the most awesome things in the universe. And while I don't necessarily have the same thought process of things being out there as maybe you do, I also do not believe it's physically possible. The chances of us being the only things in existence, we're the only universe in existence. It just feels it's so hard to believe because nothing's that minute a chance. But like I also find it a massive assumption that when you always assume that these people are going to be really technologically advanced compared to us, as opposed to what lots of the mainstream evidence has come out as is most of these things, if it is at all, it's just going to be algae.
And this is why the subject fascinates me so much and infuriates me so much as well, because there's no one answer at the moment, and I'm sure that's with most things, but there's no one answer. So you can only go with what information is out there and try and make sure your own belief system doesn't pollute your decisions and your understandings too much. And you listen and you try and figure out who's trustworthy and who's not trustworthy. But it really, for me, oh my God, for me, I think whatever it is requires a new understanding of reality, because these things are flying around, regardless of who has them. These things are flying around. And they define our laws of physics, which means we have or we are watching something that defies our laws of physics. In which case, we need a new understanding of these physics. It needs to go up to a new level, right? Which is cool. At the same time, it's where are these things are not just limited to the sky either. There's a big program that is looking at USOs, underground, unidentified submerged objects. Because these things are being seen flying into the water, coming out of the water. There are things being seen underwater. The big thing with the submerged ones is we're not going to physically see them all the time because we don't go underwater in glass cases to see. We can only rely on radar, and these things don't always pop up on military radar when they're in the sky either. So we can't rely on, there's nothing underground, it's not under the water because it's not showing up on radar. A big part of me now thinks if you were going to hide something anywhere on the planet, probably going to hide it underwater, because those oceans are so big, so vast, so unexplored. If I was going to hide something, I'm going to hide it underwater, right? Which then makes you think, well, how long have these things been underwater? Is that actually where they're coming from? Are they underwater? Are they further underground? Are they finding another way to enter our atmosphere via the water? We could get crazy and talk portals and things like that. No point, because I don't know. I can't say 100%. But they're not exclusively to overground.
It's interesting you said that, because I was going to ask this. It's like this whole thing of like we're looking at planets and realities and universes, and very little has been done to look under our seas. And that we can look at that two ways, in the sense of like, is there considerably more at the bottom of the ocean than we think, like full-on civilizations? Or if it is us, if we are creating things, it would also make an argument why there's way less funding looking at the bottom of the ocean. Oh, let's look at all the stuff above to distract us from what's down below.
It's true. It's true. It's so true, man. It's so great. Like, this is why I love the topic so much, because it just completely destroys our current nature.
And the physics arguments.
We are meant to question things, We're meant to question.
But the physics argument as well is very interesting as well, because people use physics as this. And I mean, I'm a person that uses physics in my job, and as are you, right? And but we have it as this irrefutable exact science. We all talk about it, and while for the most part probably true, and a lot of things are, we thought the atom was the smallest thing. So we saying that there's not a level of physics that we can't even comprehend.
Again, it comes to go back to that psychedelic experience. It makes you look at what you think reality is very, very differently, especially while you're under the experience, while you're under the influence, and afterwards as well. It does have a lasting effect. And you hear people reporting things way, way, way more vivid and more life-changing than anything I've experienced, because I've only ever used it in a recreational setting rather than some sort of ritual setting, which is what I want to do next, which is why I don't do it at the moment. So you do kind of end up questioning your experience, what's out there, what we do communicate with, what we can and can't communicate with, the I'll just say the company. It's not a company, but the company that my friend and I, the app that we used to help manifest what we saw, which we ain't spoke about.
We will.
We're coming to that. It involves like binaural beats and things like that. It's trying to get you into a certain brainwave, because they're saying that you can only communicate and see these things when you are operating on a certain brainwave, which again begs the question, okay, then, so is it a hallucination that we only ever see when we're on a certain brainwave?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, two boys sitting in a field getting into this meditative state are not going to be on the same brainwave as a pilot flying at what? A couple 100 miles an hour chasing after one of these things. I can't imagine we're in the same brainwave then, really.
But is that the same mechanism as how lucid dreaming works?
Who knows?
Like, I don't know. Something I've only really, I knew it existed, but it's only something I've looked at recently. And that's almost very binaural beats, meditative states half the time, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of it. A lot of this stuff is if you look at this guy, Joe Dispenza, a lot of his stuff is based on getting you into the theta brainwave, where you're likely to be more creative, you'll be less stressed. There have been reported hallucinogenic experiences as well. And I'll be honest, I use this binaural beats app all the goddamn time. Not his, but another one. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it gets me really calm or gets me in a certain state. Sure, there's a placebo effect. You've got to take that into account as well. And sometimes I listen to it and 2 minutes later, I'm stressing out and trying to kill people and whatever. Who flipping knows? But at the same time, me and my friend who did this, we was in that field for like 4 hours, chilling, hardly saying anything, sun going down, the most relaxing experience that I've had in such a long time. And we just looked up at the sky for 4 hours straight. When's the last time someone can say they looked at the sky for 4 hours straight? Because people could instantly go, well, I don't believe you. I've never seen anything. It's because you're probably down here all the time. Rather than like, you look up, you do see some weird stuff. And half the time it can all be explained. But we don't look up. It's like a goddamn film. It's like a goddamn film, you know? We don't look up enough. And we certainly used to. We certainly used to. So who knows? Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that. So let's make it less interesting, but for a deliberate question.
Yeah.
If we find something that is, and it is just algae, it is just like plants on other, but showing that there is potential life and not little green men with big heads. Do you feel it'll make a huge impact on life, even though there isn't a massive direct physical interaction?
I think it will make a massive impact to certain people, but it won't make a massive impact to everyone, because not everyone's on the same. I sound like such an arse when I say this, but not everyone's on the same educational level. Not everyone's on the same spiritual level in terms of how does this actually affect us as a species. Not enough people care. Mid-COVID, and again, it depends what excites you and what your value system are. But mid-COVID, Pentagon came out with these 3 video sightings that are declassified now are legit. The military has filmed this. We can't explain what it is. These are UFOs. It was on the front of the New York Post. Do most people care? No. You could argue it's down to news fatigue from COVID and all the other crazy stuff that was going on. Could just be people couldn't handle another thing on top of it. Could be. Most people just don't care. That's the thing. Most people aren't going to care about it. So
you say news fatigue. Is it news fatigue, or is it the fact that people don't care, or is it the media company? It's not part of the media company's agenda what they want us to care about. Because I haven't seen these videos, but I remember the story, and the reason why I probably didn't see it is because you have to hunt. UFOs, we see a sighting, should be top news. That's interesting, but it's really far down, because we have to tell you the death rates in every single country. We have to fill you with fear. We have to, and going down a conspiracy wormhole, people who are scared are more controllable. Now, is people going to be more scared by the prospects of a UFO invasion, or are people going to be more scared by something that's literally tangible that they can see and feel around them? And it just pushes this news down.
Again, it all depends on what level we start finding answers. That could be the world's biggest mass sighting of a craft over somewhere with video footage, irrefutable. That would hopefully be front page headline news for a long period of time. But whilst we don't have that, who knows if that's going to be the thing that helps people. Saying we've actually discovered, like you say, some sort of algae that has this different intelligence and moves on different levels of physics to us. Again, only certain people are going to care. Like if you look at some of the videos that come from the bottom of the ocean where they've discovered these new, man, if you want to know if aliens, not UFOs, but aliens are real, just look at the bottom of the ocean. Look at the things that are down there. Things that have their own lumosity, or I don't know if that's the right word, but they're luminous at the bottom of the ocean when there's zero goddamn light. And as soon as light reflects off it, my God, incredible things going on down there. Jellyfish, or Medusazoas, as I should say, as a species, would have been fascinating, incredible. But if you say, right, we've discovered a new species of Medusazoa, not many people are going to be interested. If you say we've discovered a species that lives at the bottom of the ocean and actually moves at the speed of light and can hover above ground and fly at the speed of light, and it's been bugging the military for decades, not everyone's going to care. Because some people just can't comprehend that as, okay, this is actually true. Some people are so paranoid, they won't believe what they're told anyway, because they'll automatically think, no, this is the media trying to force something on me. There's a large part of the community that thinks these things aren't real. They are military drones and, what would you call them, holograms that are going to fake an invasion, that is going to bring in new laws, new surveillance, or new faiths, or whatever the hell it is. You go too deep down a rabbit hole, you find everything. You find absolutely everything. You find the people that are already sexually attracted to them. It's all sorts of fucking weird things going on, right?
You'll also see that if it was a new species of jellyfish or whatever else, you also get a big section of society that was disappointed because it's now something. It's something on our planet. It's just like another species of lizard, and I'm like, yeah, but it's not. It really isn't.
The big thing for me is, a big part of me thinks that they're already here and already have been here for a long time, probably longer than us. Not necessarily that they're on another planet, that they're on Zeta Reticuli and they're flying here or switching dimensions to get here. I'm coming more and more around to the conclusion that I think whatever these are live here and have done for probably longer than us, which takes me down all sorts of rabbit holes. Have they genetically engineered us? Have they been surveying us? Is it surveillance for something else? Are they actually drones that are watching our development like we've got a Mars rover? Who knows?
Is it Nessie?
Yeah.
You never know. The thought in me really hopes that Nessie can fly, and she's like really fast.
If we discovered algae on Mars, we'd be sending way, way more than just, we wouldn't be just using that Mars rover. We'd be sending all sorts of stuff there. And knowing our current technology and what would likely reach Mars, we're probably going to send a bunch of drones over. Why the hell wouldn't we? Now, if there is a species that's living on Mars that has been there for hundreds of thousands of years, that are just used to a bit of dust, a bit of water, Martian sunset, and now suddenly things are flying overhead, which are our things, it's that perpetuating cycle of, is this just something that has been sent here to monitor us? Who knows? But I'm coming more and more to the conclusion that these things already live here, which makes it a bit more mundane for some. Because like you say, it's a species that's already here. It's already in our oceans. We just haven't discovered it. So who cares? Whereas if you put it's from another planet and it's traveled over, that brings into, well, how's it traveled? How's it gone that far? There is another planet with life on. It's way, way, way more bigger than the idea that these things are already here.
What do you think is going on?
Dimensional is a bit too much for most people to comprehend. So most people won't accept that. But go on.
What do you think is going on at Roswell, on Area 51?
Roswell was a legit craft that somehow crashed. And this is in the phenomenon as well, that they recouped the materials of the craft and are stored somewhere. And the photograph for the media, just to show something, was use of weather balloon materials. And so that's why people look at the photos and say it's just a weather balloon. But the military guys that are holding that material were told this is for the media, then we need to show them something, so hold this stuff. And they say that's not what we were holding. Were bodies recovered? I don't know. I don't think the autopsy thing is real. I don't think so. I think that takes a giant leap of faith to believe if that one is real.
And how would it stay hidden? Like you can go through secrecy acts, you can go through treason or the American equivalent, all you like, right? And I know some people have spoken about things happening in Area 51, but people talk. It's been a long time.
And that's the thing. So so Roswell's one thing. We look at Area 51 as a base, and then you look at the different areas. So Bob Lazar, for example, worked in Area S4, which is not Area 51, but it's linked to because it's in the same. Well, I don't want to say area, but it's the same zone, so to speak. It's not the same postcode, but it's certainly the same county. So there's all these different bases where different stuff was happening. And you say like people would normally talk, but if you've created enough fear and enough of a penalty to make them not talk, then they might not talk. But every now and then someone comes forward, like Bob Lazar did. Is he real? Does he have an ulterior motive? I don't think he has an ulterior motive. He's certainly not trying to get paid. He seems quite like a private person that, again, is just looking at it as one part of his life. He worked at this place and this is what he was doing, but it's not his entire. He's not going on every single podcast talking about UFOs and craft and aliens, things like that. He's not. So what do we have in these things? I'm sure we do have the most advanced military tested aircraft and weapons and things like that, but the thing that was happening with these congressional hearings is it looks like they don't have oversight of this stuff and private companies do. Private companies are not necessarily going to negotiate with each other or even communicate with each other, because if they think there's some sort of shareholding issue here, why would they then, you guys come in and work with us? What Bob Lazar was saying was that, which is not how science is done apparently, is they had one person for metallurgy, one person for propulsion, one person for this, one person for that, and they weren't allowed to communicate with each other. So therefore, no giant conclusion could be put on this. Eric Weinstein, who's one of my favorite people, he's been on Rogan a few times, has openly said this stuff now needs to be put in the realm of scientists, not private military contractors, because private military contractors don't have the tools and the understanding to figure out what this stuff is. The scientists that can collaborate in a community will probably figure this out or have a greater chance of figuring it out. But while no one's talking to each other, nothing's going to get done. And then when someone does come up and say, oh, by the way, I've been in this military base for the last 10 years, we're trying to reverse engineer this thing, but only one person does, how much are you going to believe them? With the Tic Tac UFO, we only had the video footage and then one pilot came forward, of which there were 4 pilots involved in that sighting. But then suddenly 2 pilots are now, backing up the story. And then 3 pilots are backing up the story. But because we've spent so much time not believing that first person, it's a little bit tougher to believe the new ones that come with it. Yeah. But then you can look the other way and go, well, that's more credible witnesses that have no reason to lie and have no financial investment in this. And I don't know, man.
If we get concrete proof, if something, we get a sign that there is something there, what do you reckon the best way to respond is? Do you think, do you think we should respond and go all guns blazing and find out and go like, we need to find this out? Or do we proceed with caution because we don't know? Because we also I also assume we couldn't comprehend how they would respond to us. There was an analogy I heard recently about, like, if you spoke to someone from a different language, you got an email from somebody who spoke a different language, you wouldn't understand it. If you went and met them, you would potentially wouldn't be able to understand their language, but you'd understand a smile, you'd understand a wave, you'd understand a wink, you'd understand these non-verbal lines of communication. But that might not be the case.
Yeah.
But do you think we proceed with caution? Do you think we take it very slow? Or do we get excited and go, right, what's the possibilities? Like, do we take a risk on the upside?
There might be nothing to actually communicate with, really. Like, if it is a drone, there might be enough. Or if it is some just other type of species that doesn't really have, like, how do we communicate with a fish? We can't, really. There's no language pattern there on either side. You go further up through the field. Okay, you've got cats, dogs. There's things we can then start communicating with because there's understandings of language patterns and movement and things like that. There may be nothing to genuinely communicate with. As far as I'm aware, they've never attacked us, which is why we aren't going in all guns blazing, because there's no reason to. There are moments now coming out where we allegedly have fired on them, because sometimes apparently it looks like they have a payload. in which case that then means danger, potential bomb, potential weapon. Then it's in the military's interest to engage, whether that is chasing or whether that is firing. So some of the reports I'm now reading very, very recently are saying apparently we have fired, but there's not enough information coming out to say if that is actually the case. There have been near misses of them coming near us, which may look like an aggressive act, but it's still not aggressive enough for the military to then respond with, right, fire on them now. So again, it's almost like there's a little bit of that mutually assured destruction going on behind the scenes. Like they're not firing, they're not aggressively engaging with us. I kind of like this as well, that we're not just automatically trying to shoot them down, right? Shoot it down, catch it, figure out what it is. We have no need to shoot that down. For the American military to be going in with that approach, I'm actually quite chuffed.
But this would make you argue of potentially the accuracy of these stories, in the sense of if the Americans would shoot down somebody from another country that entered their airspace, you're telling me they wouldn't shoot down somebody they weren't sure of? Like, if they know someone from China's coming in here, they're more likely to shoot it down. That poses a more direct threat than a, So I just can't comprehend the fact that they wouldn't shoot it down.
Yeah, I'm 100% as well. Like I say, I'm proud that we're not shooting them down, because man, that would just sum up our species in one. If things have come here, if things are visiting here, or it already exists, and our first response is, or just shoot it, who cares, shoot it, and then we'll ask questions later, figure out what it is later. Like, I mean, let's say something does come out of the ocean. Like, there was a video the other day of this shark species they've discovered that is actually coming out of the water onto land. You read that headline, like, oh my God.
Is this absolutely legit, or is this another person?
So this is 100% true.
Because a lot of these stories you speak as if they're guaranteed fact, when we absolutely know that's not true.
We'll get deeper. This is guaranteed. It's a species of shark. It's a beautiful looking little creature. It really, really was, and it was tiny. These are not great whites standing up on their hind legs and walking onto the land.
Like that cartoon with the aggressive motorbike sharks. I used to have the toy.
The headline would make you believe that was the case, but it wasn't. It was in some cave or some cove, and this shark has come so far. It's tiny, right? It's come so far out of the water that it's actually using its not fins. It was like, I don't know what you call them, whatever they are. That I guess they're fins, but they're not just fins.
Yeah,
they're vibrating along like that, and they're using that to propel themselves across the rocks where there's not enough water for them to swim. So the tail's doing nothing, buoyancy's doing nothing. They're using these across and there's video footage of it. It's incredible. So essentially, we've now discovered a species of shark that has evolved to move across land. But again, a sensationalist headline would make you think it's sharks coming out of the water. But the good thing is we're looking at it and they're going to study it. We're not going straight in and going, right, kill it, figure out how the hell it's walking on, interrogate it. How are you walking? Let's do what, normal, rational, hopefully rational human beings and scientists would do. Let's look at it from a scientific perspective, which doesn't mean we have to capture it and kill it. So I'd like to think that we can observe and try and study these things without the need to try it and capture or to destroy it first. So if you destroy it, you learn fuck all. And we're then becoming the aggressor. And it looks like their technology, whilst we don't necessarily see weapons, their technology is way, way, way more advanced. So why would you necessarily go and pick the fight with the bigger boy who's not aggressively acting towards you? It doesn't make sense that we would do that. But all it takes is one trigger happy pilot to do it. But then, like I say, as more and more of this info is coming out, apparently there are reports where we have engaged. But engaged is a subjective term. Is it chased? Is it collided with? Is it shot? This is what Congress is asking.
Joe Biden looking at the sky going, you.
And then trying to shake hands with himself. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely no idea. Do you think we get concrete evidence in our lifetime?
I really feel like something big's going to come soon. Really flipping soon.
What soon?
Mate, I would have put money on September.
This year?
Certain people, I believe, I would look out for something big in September. Well, I can't say. I can't possibly say.
Are we putting a 10 on it?
I would like to think, but it depends on what level, right? Depends on what level we're going to go to. So you say concrete proof. Is that video footage? Is that official government announcement? Is that, I mean, what is that? What is concrete proof? You know, who knows? What is concrete proof?
Well, something that's relatively irrefutable that someone can't just go, that's a madman speaking on an internet forum. We're not talking red pill forums here. We're talking something genuine. Would you put a 10 on it?
Okay, tenner in September.
Tenner in September. I'll give you to the end of October.
That's something intensely irrefutable and reputable. We'll say that this is 100% the case. I would like to think in September that we'll have someone very, very reputable, and it's not going to be presidential, come out and say, we have these craft in our possession. That's what I'd like to think will happen.
I mean, this is really interesting. Like, you're looking for like you're betting a 10. I know it's only a tenner. You're betting a tenner on literally everything changing in the world.
Mate, I've bet more money on stupider things. Don't worry. It's all good in the bit. But I'd like to think that now we've seen this year especially that things are changing, that governments and private contractors are being told they can't be as secretive, and we have the ability to access more information, and more people can film things, but yes, more people can edit things as well. I'd like to think that in our lifetime, we would see more. We may not have the concrete answer as to what they are and where they're from, but we would see more concrete understanding. This is you can't argue this. These things exist. These things are flying around the skies and in the seas, and
Interesting.
But we may not. Yeah.
So to bring a close onto aliens and bring us to finishing off with the story that brought most people that listen to this to the podcast. Tell us the story about the ghost and flip flops.
So for the 10,000 people that have heard that me and my friend manifested a ghost in flip flops.
By the way, when I come back to the UK, please get me involved in this.
Mate, let's do this. There's groups that do this. There's not many in the UK. My mate's on this app. I'm not on it. And there's groups of people messaging each other. Let's do like a group things. Apparently, it works better in a group. But this geezer, his name's Dr. Stephen Greer. He was on Rogan years ago. Rogan doesn't like him anymore. Some of his documentaries are terrible. Some of his arguments get debunked and he doesn't accept it. A lot of his stuff's behind a paywall. Can I fully 100% support the geezer? No, I can't. But he has this app that has these binaural beats and this, I don't want to say rituals, like a method where if you follow it, apparently you will see something. But it's more of a manifestation. So it's allowing them to visit you.
Like a Ouija board.
Almost like a Ouija board, which takes more of an understanding that these things are traveling here and you just so happen to be at the right place at the right time. You're manifesting something into your dimension through whatever vibration, let's call it, that you're giving off, okay? So the first thing that you do is you play this meditative music with these binaural beats in the background. You openly and internally exclaim what you're looking for. Say, this is a safe place, come visit me, whatever. And then you kind of ask what you want to see. Granted, we've only done this a couple of times. He's done it a lot more than I have. I have to send you these photos because he has some mad photos as well. And then you're just chilling. You put in these different, I don't want to call them tunes, but you're putting these different beats on. Some of them sound nice and relaxing. Some of them sound really weird, like really flipping weird. Like if anyone walked past you, you'd be like, what the hell are you boys doing? This is a bit odd. And we were in this massive cornfield that was nowhere near anyone. Okay, we were near a train line. It was nowhere near anyone. Not really a public footpath, but there is a footpath. And no one came around. We knew, because we didn't want the farmer coming out and shooting us out of the field. So we checked. It's not a field that you go in to walk around. It's not really a throughway. It's not a way to a farmhouse. It's literally just this cornfield. Just so happened to be a gap through the fence that we went into. And we've been there a couple of hours. It's like the sun's still up. We've seen some weird things. We've seen some planes that were not on official flight apps because he's got it all, man. He's got it all. So you see something in the sky, let's just check the official flight app. Oh, it's MH720 on its way to fucking Mallorca or whatever. We'd see planes flying over that weren't on these apps, right? Which is kind of cool. There might be a simple explanation someone can tell me there. It might be. We're seeing odd shapes, very odd and thick shapes in the clouds. The things that you need to look at for a long while before, like, you'll ask, is that solid? Is that moving? And some things just turn out to be just light reflecting on the clouds. And again, you don't look at the clouds often enough to have a full understanding of what these things do, you know? And then we heard We didn't hear. We saw someone coming. I'm like, oh shit. We're standing there in the middle of this field, like no camping gear or anything like that, with a Bluetooth speaker with these weird blips coming out of it. And it just so happened at the time we were talking about Liver King. And we see this woman walking towards us. We're like, oh man, this is it, like farmer's wife or something. It's going to tell us to leave, or she's going to report us later, or something like that. Now, if you were walking in a field in the middle of nowhere as the sun's going down, as a female on your own, okay, granted, you might be a little bit shy. You might turn around and go the opposite direction. Understandable. Wouldn't have thought anything bad about her in the slightest. She walks past us, like from a good 100 meters away. And not once do her eyes look in our direction. Like, not once. Now, if you were worried about your own safety, you'd look a little bit. You do a quick look to the side. For the entire time she walked up to us, in front of us, and past us, her eyes did not move, right? I'm sure she's all right. I'm sure she's all right. She might have been terrified. She might have just been really rude. She might not have even been human, right? She was wearing flip-flops, denim shorts. She had this buzz cut that, you know, older females get when they've given up on trying to look semi-attractive in the slightest. And she just carries on walking past us and then never comes back. Like I say, we checked this field out. It's not the farmhouse isn't there. And if she was going into the farmhouse, she'd be certainly coming back to tell us to get the fuck out of the field, or the farmer would, or whatever. There was nowhere else for her. There's no village for her to walk off that she should be walking through in pitch black. Like, you would not have seen where you were going. She didn't come around and come back later. Later on, much later on, we saw a woman walking a dog who went into the field and then about 20 minutes later came back. Like, that's the route. That's all you could do. So where the fuck did this woman go? So we're like, right, she's either hiding in the corn, she's collapsed and she needs our help. She knows a different way that we know, or she was a ghost. We manifested this woman, right? So then we look at, okay, right, Occam's razor, what's the simplest explanation? And to be fair, I'd say
I want to hear the simplest explanation, because right now it sounds like this woman must have been a ghost because she didn't look at you. If a girl, if she's alive, a girl would have to look at me.
There's this like, you walk past these two fellas in the field in the middle of nowhere who are playing these weird sounds out of a Bluetooth speaker, and this geezer's not stopped talking about Liver King, because that's what I was doing. I was like, I don't want it to go awkward and go silent and make this bird feel even worse. I'm just going to keep talking about what I was talking about, which was a Liver King. Might have sounded really, really weird. But in terms of the simplest explanation, location, where she could have been heading, what she was doing, why she was out that late at night, the simplest explanation is she was a ghost. She was a ghost. Like, that's actually the simplest explanation. Like, that's the thing. That's the thing where people.
That's like that's a human being having a slightly green tinge. You go, simplest explanation, alien.
When you look at all the questions that would have to be answered to explain why she was there, where she was going, why her behavior was so weird, like, ghost. Simple as that. That was the simplest explanation, that she was a ghost.
I really want to believe you. I really want to.
At the same time,
I think the woman went through a gap in a hedge. That's what I think happened.
Let's look back at the reports from, you know, like Rivenhall Air Base or many others, where they've seen, right, someone's getting into the aircraft, get a torch, chase them down. What the hell are you doing? No one there. And then again and again. And then they'll see people, it's like in World War II military uniform, chase them down. They're not there. Okay, so then we've got to look at, okay, I saw someone. I definitely saw someone. We've got to look at all the different explanations. Could maybe have been tired? Could it have been a trick of the light? Why does it look like a World War II uniform? All these different things, when essentially the simplest explanation is, not saying what they are at all, but the simplest explanation is, then that's a ghost. That is the simplest explanation. What that geezer saw was a ghost. But then that leads us down the deeper rabbit hole of, okay, what actually is a ghost? Is it some sort of matter? Is it an imprint? Is it a memory? Is it a projection? Who knows? That's when things go, well, it can't be a ghost, can it? But at that moment in time, the simplest explanation was, we manifested a ghost.
Is that the only time you've seen one? So the only time you manifested something in one of these times you've gone with the binaural beats?
In terms of manifesting, that's the only thing we've seen. Oh, we saw some odd sights. Again, it was cool, man. We saw a lot of planes that weren't on a list. We saw a lot of Elon Musk's satellites flying past. So many of them. It was incredible, right? Considering there's only 120 up in up in the sky, we must have saw about 30 just over our little field in Essex. It's crazy.
How do you know those satellites were Elon Musk satellites?
So I use an app called In the Night Sky. I won't load it up now, it takes too long. It's called In the Night Sky. There's loads of apps you can use. And it will tell you what star is what star, what you're seeing, and then it will show you, you'll see. Like, it only used to be a handful of satellites and the space station. So I used to watch it and see if I could see the space station. And that will tell you, right, that's satellite, you click on it, it's part of Starlink's. And like, it was just one after the other. It was crazy. It was so cool, man. Just to do that was so cool. And to chill with a mate, not in a pub, you know?
And I think as well, like, putting aside, like, bringing this back to reality, like, people might listen to this and go, what are these mad bastards chatting about? And maybe they're absolutely right? You obviously, you have more belief in than me, but I want to believe something, and I do feel there's something I'm aware of. I just don't know what. But if nothing, if we are just talking utter shit, I do think there's such value in anything that gets us out from talking about just doing the same old routine. You got out in nature, talking about the Liver King and his ancestral tenants. You got out in nature, looking at the sky, you know, and like with the same thing with hallucinogenics, right? Whenever I've done that, I've spent 12 hours looking at the sky, not looking at my phone, being with my friends, properly being with my friends and having a genuine conversation, as opposed to half conversation because you're thinking about your work and who's text you and all the things that bring today. Sometimes it's good just to, we're hunting for meditation. You just need a break.
And that's essentially what it is. What's the type of meditation? There was a lot of time we weren't talking, but it wasn't an awkward silence. Our conversation was not directed by alcohol or any other sort of drug. It was a genuine conversation. We were chilling. You could say, in a way, we were connecting, and we were just doing something that most people don't do. It wasn't a Netflix special. Again, there wasn't booze involved. My phone did not leave my pocket, apart from just a quick video of where we were, which was more for me than anything else. It was like a beautiful experience, and we got to see some cool stuff up in the sky. Like there's not much in Essex. There's really, really not, and it's tough to find somewhere really, really away from anywhere else once you're in Essex. If anyone can direct me to the places that's not the case, let me know. Further afield in the UK, yeah, there's more isolated areas. But man, this is where I want to go, other areas of the world, and just experience that again, completely on my own, nothing to look at but the sky, no digital stimulation whatsoever, no news, no media, no drunk conversation, no talk about work. We do not do that enough. And some people might think that they do. Yeah, I have a chill on my garden on a Sunday, inviting mates around, the family around. We've got the ice bucket with the booze in. It's not the same experience. No. It's almost like a plastic type of connection. Really,
it's meditating that thing on top. It's the music. I'm not saying there's anything wrong. Some of my best memories of those days, but it's no one ever stops and just does nothing. I did a short 2-hour stint just in the Hong Kong harbour. I wasn't away from everything. I was right in the middle of a densely populated city, but I just did nothing. So like a meditation app, I just chilled out and then just listened to nothing for a while. Yeah. And I kept headphones in, so the calm app, even when you're not meditating, it plays the sea sound. So I just can block out people. And like I couldn't believe how calm I felt from doing that just for like probably about an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes in total. Yeah. And I realized how little I actually do that. When I relax, how little I am actually relaxed. And I think, imagine if I did something like that. I can totally see the appeal of why people do like Buddhist meditation retreats now, or like being away from everything for a period of time and just properly chilling out.
There's a big 7-day retreat I want to go on where you don't have your phone. You don't have access to your phone. Now, for the first 24 to 36 hours, I'm certain it's not going to be that relaxing because there's going to be a lot of anxiety. Shit. What's this? Is this person saying something? What's happening on Instagram? What am I missing? What's the news saying? It's natural because that's how often we spend next to our phones. But I'm certain after probably 36 hours, if not maybe 48, it's just going to be, well, your brain's doing what it's meant to do. Yeah, you're going to be thinking weird things all the time. There's still going to be some stimulation. But to be away from that noise, from being stuck in that circle all the flipping time, I think that's game changing. To be able to do that for an extended period of time, I think that's where some of this growth comes from. I mean, you look at, what do they call them?
You'll come back with what you think of that? You'll come up with a big beard, no t-shirt, not wearing nylon anymore, and eating raw liver with your £100 million business.
Feeds. I'll try not to do the beard because it gets too itchy for me, so probably won't have the beard, but the hair will be long.
I tell you what, I was going to say this to you off air, but I won't. I'll do it on air because we were speaking about this last week. I've almost finished the Diver CEO episode, and I am actually very impressed.
I'm hearing amazing things about it. Amazing things. Guys in my accountability group have listened to it, and they're really, really impressed by it. And a mate of me sent me the Instagram reel, and I was like, it's actually quite intriguing. I'm going to have to listen to it now. I want to know more about the geezer. I'm not saying I'll be sold by his methods, but I want to know more about him.
He definitely comes across a little bit like he's got a system, and he doesn't actually know the logic behind his system. Right? Like, like when people have something where they don't really, you can tell they're not really gone. Like, you see scientists about carnivore and they'll tell you why it works. He goes, works for me and my ancestors. It always goes back to the ancestral tenets. But he's spent a lot of time with tribes, and you can't deny he's helped his kids get over big issues, mental and physical, with where they live. He sees he's not brushed his teeth in years. Right? Yeah, I pulled that face too. And his teeth are absolutely glisteningly white. And I remember watching episode. I remember reading a book by Sean Croxton called The Dark Side of Fat Loss, and he spoke about people going to these tribes, and obviously they don't have electric toothbrushes and dental floss in these places, and they all had amazing teeth. And I sit there and I do that stuff like much better than mine.
That's the old Western Price Foundation stuff as well. That they would go to these African tribes and their jaws were shaped differently.
He said that
not the Western diet, they've not got the same amount of stress where we're grinding our teeth. They develop a certain way because of the different levels of nutrients. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. So there is something in him. There's definitely something in him. But there's also, like you say, a bit of that belief of, well, it's worked for me, so it must be true. That may not necessarily be backed up. But in that always makes me think, do we always need to have this backup?
And 90% of it, do you need backing up? Like bonding with humans, getting sunlight, getting uncomfortable, and like some of them are a bit silly and they're a bit over the top, but essentially the actual core principles are pretty irrefutable.
If you followed 90% of what he's saying in your own value sphere in your own community, you don't have to go to a field, you don't have to eat raw cow liver, you'd probably be happier than most people. You'd probably be happier than you are now, because you'd have better nutrition, better sunlight, less depression, better hormonal balance, better human communication with people, better connection. Of course. So there is something in there, 100%. It doesn't mean we necessarily have to dissect it with pure science and go, well, actually, is there larger benefit to eating raw cow liver than there is chicken breast from Tesco? Really? Yeah. This is the problem we have with the evidence-based fitness crowd as well. It's sometimes what you're saying just ain't relevant for 90% of the public, really. In terms of their understanding of what they want to do, okay, granted, we do need to make sure we're following the methods that are actually going to work for them. Sometimes there is such a thing as too deep down the rabbit hole, and my God, it comes around the back quite nicely.
An interpretation. But I always say podcasts always come full circle, and I appreciate that you have to head off in a second. And it's an odd episode. We'd get a guest on, and nearly every time we've had you on the show, like, where do we find you? But we are coming on weekly now, so people should know where to find you already. So we're going to change this up a little bit as a closing thing. If people listen to this and want to start going down the rabbit hole, where should they start? What is the 2 or 3 things they should go and research? Documentaries, books, or people?
Sure. First thing you should do is watch The Phenomenon, the amazing documentary that you can get on Amazon Prime. It might be on Netflix now, might not be. The Phenomenon. It's incredible. So that'll give you a bit of an intro into how long this stuff's been going on and what information is actually out there. I would also go on Rogan. I would look at Rogan's. I shared this the other day. I might just make it a permanent link. I put together 36 hours worth of UFO related episodes from podcasts that I listen to. If you want that link, hit me up on Instagram and I'll send you a link. Because the good thing with Rogan is he doesn't just blindly believe. He questions a lot of stuff. I would go on Rogan and listen to the Jeremy Corbell episode where he's on his own. if you want to then go a little bit deeper, you listen to Jeremy Corbell on Rogan with Bob Lazar or with George Knapp or someone like that. That's where I would start. What else was I going to say?
And then, if you want Robb's lead magnet for alien business chat, go and hook him up on Instagram and he will send you it. I'm going to.
If you want my
give you my email for that.
Playlist that will change your current understanding of reality in 90 days or less, DM me the word UFO on Rob Core. Say do it. Download my free Spotify playlist.
I'm looking for 5 men who want to transform their concept of reality in 90 days or their money back.
That's it. It works. It works. I did. I'll just let you know quickly. I did a advertisement on Canva for JP related to 5 things he's looking for. Just to let you know.
Oh my god! I absolutely can't wait. He said, I don't know if it was related to the show, but he says after that reel went, not viral, but went big. He said I might have to come off social media for this, but he did it with sending me a story that was completely irrelevant, like about a meerkat doing something. So is he coming out on social media because he wants to see more meerkat memes or because he wants to hear us chat aliens? I don't know.
I'm gonna go more for the meerkat memes.
Yeah, the only way we'll know is when this comes out next Thursday. He will call us like fucking idiots or we're wrong and there's no point talking about it. It's a waste of time. We'll find out then. But Rob,
if he is listening, I miss you, brother. I miss you.
Yeah,
get back online.
And 100%. We need more trolling online. Just not us. All's good. All's fair. All's fair in love and war. Thank you very much, Rob. Really interesting chat. I absolutely love this. I will speak to you next week, if not before. And thank you again. Guys, thank you very much for watching the podcast. If you're like me and like to binge watch podcast episodes, click here for our most recent episode. And if you enjoy the show and want to be updated when new videos come live, click here to subscribe to the channel.